I am grateful to have all the conversation about what the law is and is not, what the polity is and is not. And with all due respect to the Book of Order of the Constitution, to what my colleagues are holding forward, I'm thinking about persons who are transgender in our midst, in our families, in our churches, that would not define themselves, nor could they be genetically or medically understood clearly as either a man or a woman. So while our conversation is mostly about plain gay people like me, a same gender-loving gay guy, and if I fall in love and want to get married somewhere, would a Presbyterian minister do that? Would a session say it's okay to use the sanctuary? And then what kind of liturgy will we have? And do we say the word marriage or not? So there's that part of the conversation that affects a lot of people. But the truth of the matter is, this whole conversation is an insult to part of God's creation of our sisters and brothers that are transgender, who are neither male nor female. I hope we'll err on the part of recognizing mystery in God's creation. That's my personal view. I'm also keenly aware of many Presbyterian ministers in New York who have done and will do marriage ceremonies. So you have people within your midst, you have colleagues that you can have conversation about how they put together the service and what kind of liturgy they use. I hope you'll be in conversation with some of those folks. I'm also aware of 900 United Methodist ministers who are saying, we're going to do marriages. So we have sisters and brothers in traditions that have a book of discipline that's much tougher, as I understand it, as a non-stated clerk, non-polity expert. The Methodist book of discipline and their consequences have been much more difficult for clergy than ours. So I think people are taking a variety of stands based on recognizing God's creation in front of them, as Johanna and Earl have both lifted up, erring toward pastoral care. So anyway, I not that I have a strong opinion about any of this. This is why my friends say, Michael, we know why you don't play poker. Oh my God, So I don't play poker because everything's on my face. But at the end of the day, we could be wrong. And at the end of the day, our book of order could be wrong. And I'm guessing on the fact that Earl is probably correct, and the woman with the white hair and the glasses is probably correct, and that this is a characterization about marriage, but not a prohibition about same-gender loving people or transgender people. I mean, that's where I think is the conversation's likely to lead, if I had a crystal ball. But at the end of the day, I just hope we'll be part of the Reformed tradition, and that we will be open to whatever God is saying to us.
I'd like to, on this resources thing, on page 3, sort of in the middle, there's a paragraph that begins with number 1, just to point out how this is an unsettled issue. The Synod of the Pacific agrees with Joanna that the law says thus and so because the GAPJC says it says it. But they also say the GAPJC came to that determination beyond its authority. And that's, so it's going to be very interesting to see what the GAPJC does when the mouse roars at it, when the Spar case is heard and decided.
So how does the Janet Edwards case factor in all of this?
I actually don't know the Janet Edwards case.
So in Pittsburgh Presbytery, the Janet Edwards case, Presbyterian minister who performed a wedding of 2 women, and there have been 2 trials. Her case essentially took Earl's perspective that neither Scripture nor the Book of Order prohibits legal marriage and the blessing of same-gender loving couples, and was acquitted. So to me, that's an interesting element in the midst of all of this, is the Janet Edwards case.
And was not appealed then? Is
Right.
that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but I thought it would be a kind thing to let our pastors know I was listening to this presentation tonight so that I could ask them, what questions do you have that I could bring? So I have 2 questions. I'm not sure that they offer any light, probably just more murk, but here is one of them. And I'm very aware that it kind of depends whether you look toward the broad or the narrow interpretations here. So one of these, is there anything that would prevent us from performing same-sex marriages outside the walls and grounds of the church property? I'm assuming it is still not legal for us to perform marriages within a PCUSA building. But I think I'm hearing him saying not even on the property. So is he, I think he's asking, can I do so off the grounds of a PCUSA church?
No.
Correct me. My understanding is that whether you're on, that the teaching elder may not officiate at a Christian marriage anywhere,
Anywhere, okay.
but they
That's
can
what I thought.
officiate at a same-gender blessing in the church or not.
Right. Here's the other one. I thought that was the answer.
Well, we have another opinion.
Yeah, but
You just said that if an elderly couple comes to me and says, we'd like our relationship recognized, an elderly heterosexual couple, by the church but not by the state, that I may not do that. And that has happened to me. I have been asked to do that. But I may not. Isn't that the exact same situation? To do a union that is recognized but not by the state?
I would say it was the opposite, because
Yeah.
the civil union is state recognized.
So that the church is telling us that as teaching elders, we can take off our church hat, but not our state hat.
Don't look at me.
No,
Ralph Jones wrote the Book of Order. We learned it here, and is responsible for the legal code.
Is that basically the truth, that the church is telling us that as teaching elders, we can take off our church hat before we can take off our state hat? And I object to that. I don't want to take off my church hat.
I think there's a real question, and I haven't heard any resolution of it as to whether a teaching elder can perform a non-Christian civil marriage under the authority of the state, which gives them the authority to sign the license, but yet it not be a Christian marriage. That's not at all clear, and I think well, I've heard that question raised a number of times. Can I take off my religious hat, or since I am a teaching elder within the Presbyterian Church, is any marriage, wherever and however I perform it, if it is a marriage, then it has to be a Christian marriage. That's unknown at this point.
Sorry, Marianne.
Yeah, I
Back
would
to you.
agree.
This one I think is probably easily answered as well. What can we do to allow same-sex marriages in our church buildings? Will NFOG clear the way? My sense was that NFOG really hasn't made a difference on this.
No.
Is that you're reading to the clerks?
The definition of marriage is in the Directory for Worship. NFOG only changed
Form of government.
the form of government part.
Right.
And until the GA
in its wisdom, decides to take up the question, that's what
And
we've
we're
got.
stuck there.